Stop. Ooh. Hello. Hello. I can't believe it's only 4:46. It's so dark out. Well, I like it when it gets dark sooner, but it feels like it's bedtime. I got my roots done and I got bangs. I like it. I like it. Nobody's here. Where's that noise? Where's the noise? You can't hear it. I'm almost out of milk and I want cereal. I have cereal, but I don't have enough milk for cereal. Do you like my hair? My roots were an inch rooty. So I went to the salon and she did my roots and I got some bangs. So I'll just wait for some more people to come and then we're going to read chapter 3. Are we on chapter 3? I think so. Yep. This is a really fun book so far. Nancy, it seems that some cheerleader chick has the hots for Ned and they kissed when Nancy was right there and saw them, but he's acting like nothing strange happened. I don't think Ned doesn't know that Nancy saw him kissing that girl. What's her name? Denise. And apparently she looks like Nancy. And she's very, but this Denise lady seems to be quite nice. And she's offered Nancy that Nancy can stay at her place. But Nancy already has a place to stay. And yeah, the first chapter was the basketball game. And then the second chapter, they went out to a Italian restaurant to celebrate. Nancy went downstairs to use the phone. Who was she going to call? Her dad or someone? I don't remember. And then Nancy got kidnapped right at the end of the chapter. I can't believe this, she thought in horrified amazement. I'm being kidnapped. Who is she going to call? I have to call the Sampsons and let them know what time we'll be there. Those are the people she's staying with George. Bess is not in this book for some reason. And they spent a whole chapter pretty much at an Italian restaurant and Bess isn't there. Chicago? Yeah, they're in Chicago. They went to Chicago for the weekend because Ned had a big basketball tournament game and she and George were watching in the bleachers, and this cheerleader lady, right? There's still, it says there's only one person here, so I'm going to wait a bit longer. I'm so thirsty. Well, it's November 20th here. What year is it where you are? What month is it where you are? And there's still no snow, and I don't see any in the 10-day forecast. And that is making me upset. Sometimes there's snow on Halloween. We haven't had any snow yet. My aunt and some of my cousins live in Saskatchewan, and they have snow there. Saskatchewan is to the left of me. Well, when you're looking on a map, right, it's to the left. Yes. Canada, well, you've got these little, the maritime provinces. They don't count, but we'll start at, they count, but like they're little and stuff. So we'll start at Quebec, right at the east there, but not quite all the way to the east. Then you have Ontario. Then you have Manitoba right after that. No, I'm forgetting. Wait, what's right next to Ontario? Manitoba, right? Then Saskatchewan, then Alberta, then British Columbia. And then you've got some cold places up here and some eastern places over by the sea there. Yeah. It's crazy. It's a big country. Now, I think of the size of the size of it on the map. Canada is pretty big, right? But we only have the number of provinces and territories that we have compared to the number of states. There's like so many. Why are there so many states? And I imagine having to remember all that in geography class. Goodness, that must be hard. I don't know why I always remember the shape of Utah on the map. It might be because one of my favorite Beach Boys songs is Salt Lake City. I've never been to Utah, but one of my favorite Beach Boys songs is called Salt Lake City. Oh, at the salon. I think it's her daughter who has a dog. Was it a cocker? Not a cocker spaniel, but kind of like the same shape. And it was only 7 months old, and his name was Larry, and he was so sweet. And he came and sat on me and was like, boop, boop, boop. Larry. Isn't that the cutest name for a cute little puppy dog? I've never known a dog named Larry. You wouldn't expect that as his name. And I like it. Larry. So, should we get started? Who's here? If you're here, please make yourself known. It's so dark in here. Maybe I should turn my light at the back on. You think I should? I'm going to try it. You want your light back on, huh? Okay, here you go. There's your light. There's your light, my sweet. What do we think? Is it good to have that light on? I don't enjoy it very much, but it gives me a little more light to read by. Didn't I just go and put my drink in the microwave? Did I? Doesn't feel hot to me. I'm checking to see how many pages are in this chapter. There's one break. Oh, it's not that long. How many? Wait a minute. I'm going ahead to see if I can find the name Bess anywhere, but I don't see it. I do not see the name Bess anywhere. Dang. I just assumed if George is in it, Bess should be in it too. Gosh. And there's a Dave. One of the basketball players' name is Dave, but he's not Dave from the Netherlands. He's just some rando Dave. Is it just me, or are they like crooked? I don't even care, but whatever. My hair is very fine, so I couldn't have like these beautifully thick things. But it is very nice to have it look pretty. I mean, there are some different shades going on here in my blonde, but I'm going to keep going to her every time I need my roots done so that eventually it will be exactly the same color. And I want it to get it like pretty long, like way down here. And the bangs are pretty fun. I might keep them for a while. I think it's pretty nice. How come nobody's here? I guess it's because it's like only not even 5 yet. I won't start until someone says something in the chat so that I know you're listening. I want some 7-Up. Should I do my injection on camera? My monthly hormonal injection to keep the cancer at bay. No, not at bay, to keep the cancer away. Usually I do it on the 14th, but I just got it yesterday. So I'm going to do it today. Should I do it? Should I show you guys? Do you want to watch me do my injection? No, but I do it right here. I go like this, and I go. My cancer doctor, last time I saw him, well, I was talking about that injection, and I said, "Oh, I do it myself. I don't like going to the clinic. You have to wait forever. They never have any windows open. The one that's closest to me still makes you wear face diapers. It's like very makes me feel very unhealthy to be in there. So I just do it myself." But he was quite impressed. He was writing some stuff out for my family doctor, and he was talking about the injection. And he said, in brackets, he wrote self-administered exclamation point. So I guess most people get someone else, like a professional, to do it. I'm like, no, that's too much hassle. I'll just stab myself in the stomach. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, my hair feels so soft. Well, first of all, I was a mess when I got to the salon because I hadn't washed my hair for like a long time because I wanted it to be all dirty and nice for my scalp and stuff for when she bleached it. And it just looked and felt so gross. And then when I was finished, it just felt so nice. Okay, let's get started. We are on chapter 3. Taking a deep breath to pull herself together, Nancy lunged to her side. She was guessing at where the door handle might be. If only she could get it open, she might be able to roll out or at least attract some passerby's attention. The gloved hand clamped down on her right wrist again, stopping her before she even reached the door. Nancy cried out in pain as her arm was twisted behind her back. A second later, a gag was forced into her mouth. Then her arms were both pulled behind her back and tied, tightly but not painfully. Nancy's mind raced. Why would anybody want to kidnap her? She wasn't working on a case. She didn't have any enemies out of prison, at least none that she knew of. I'm in Chicago to see my boyfriend's college basketball game, Nancy thought. She was forcing herself to think slowly and logically. It would be all too easy to give in to panic. Who even knows I'm here? Suddenly, a thought struck her. Was it even remotely possible? Would somebody be crazy enough to kidnap her to sabotage the Wildcats' chance of winning? Maybe someone was hoping to put Ned out of action. He was the co-captain and one of the top players after all. And with illegal betting, there was a lot of money riding on the outcome of the tournament. Her kidnappers rode in eerie silence. Nancy knew there must be at least 2 of them, one to drive and one to keep an eye on her. She wished they'd say something. Hearing their conversation or their voices might help her figure out who they were. The car took many sharp turns, speeding up, then coming to sudden stops. Nancy tried to concentrate on where they were taking her. Right, then left again. She quickly lost track of the turns. The only thing she could guess was that they must be winding their way through the streets of Chicago. She began to feel slightly nauseated from all the stopping and starting. Well, at least they weren't running any red lights. Oh, yes, when you're kidnapped and tied up and gagged in the back of a car, make sure you don't run any red lights. Be ashamed to break the law. Nancy could feel panic beginning to mix with her nausea. She needed to concentrate. She kept telling herself, if she was going to get out of this jam, she had to make some sense of where they were taking her. The twisting and turning must have been intended to keep her from doing just that. Nancy wondered if they were being careful because they knew she was a detective. A few minutes later, she felt the car going down a sharp incline. It was bumpy, and although the windows were rolled up, she could tell that they were on a gravel road. Then the car stopped abruptly. The back door opened, and at the same time, Nancy heard the whine of an automatic door. Maybe we're in a garage, she thought. She felt a hand grasp her upper arm and pull. Stiffly, she got up from the seat and stepped out of the car. She straightened up. By then, she was sure they were in a garage. She smelled a faint reek of gasoline. If it's faint, how can it reek? Reek is like intense, right? So how can it be a faint reek? A faint reek of gasoline. And although it was cold, it wasn't nearly so cold as it had been outside. The hand still had hold of her arm. For a moment, she was grateful for the firm grasp. She felt slightly unstable from the ride, and the blindfold was throwing off her sense of balance. A heavy coat was slung over her shoulders. With it, she caught a whiff of a man's cologne. Nancy felt a little spark of triumph. They weren't the most careful of kidnappers, she thought. It was a good sign. Maybe kidnapping was just a hobby and not a full-time job for these people, whoever they were. Again, she was led through a door. From the sudden change in temperature, she guessed she was inside now. Someone took back the coat from her shoulders. Nancy shivered. It felt drafty. She could hear the pop and crackle of a fire, but it was not in the room she was in. She was pulled and prodded forward. She stepped slowly, feeling wooden floorboards that creaked under her feet in places. Once she almost tripped over a rug. The kidnappers herded her into yet another room. A door clanged shut, and a motor and a grinding of gears began. The room started moving. Oh my. Elevator? Service elevator. Instinctively, Nancy reached out to grab the walls, but all she grabbed was metal grating. A moment later, she realized she was in some kind of elevator. She could feel at least 2 other people in the elevator with her. The elevator jerked to a stop, and an arm brushed against hers as one of her captors moved to the front to pull back the elevator door. Someone guided her out, and she smelled an overpowering chemical smell that was familiar. But from where? Nancy was pushed down into an overstuffed chair. It was musty smelling, and the springs were broken. Nancy felt herself sink into its depths. Where is she? She's not in a modern elevator. It's like a service elevator. She heard a door open and close at the far end of the room, and then footsteps. They were slow, deliberate steps, and each one made her heart pound faster. The footsteps stopped inches from her chair. The hairs on Nancy's neck rose as she felt the silent gaze of whoever had just entered the room. "You idiots!" She suddenly heard the voice of the newcomer. "You've got the wrong girl! Get rid of her!" Before Nancy even had time to react, a handkerchief soaked in chloroform was clapped over her mouth and nose. Then everything went black. Yep, it says on the back, a kidnapper intending to abduct Denise grabs Nancy instead. Oh, and there was something about art, right? Smuggling of art or something. Art smugglers or something. Whew. Okay. Well, I'm going to heat up. There's like a little break in the paragraphs, or like in the story, a little space. In some books, they would put a star, star, star in between. But there's nothing in this one. See how it like. If it was an audiobook, you might have a little musical interlude. I don't have my piano out. I thought that would be far too distracting. Far too distracting. Dun, 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 dun. Far too distracting. Dun, 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 dun. Oh. Okay. So I get my books from thrift books. And I had made an order and they came in 2 different packages. Well, I was supposed to get the Willows in Winter and it was coming, but the guy didn't leave it at the door. That's what they do with packages. Especially if it's just a book, you know? It's not like some humongous thing. It's not some humongous electronics or something or a sofa. They just leave the packages at our door, at the building's door. Because the people in the back here, there's no doorbell on the outside, okay? The mailman has like a special key so he or she can get in to our mailboxes, which are just inside the door. And when you're just inside the door, there's like a little buzzer for each apartment. But when you're outside, only the people in the front apartments can like hear someone banging on the door. So I got a message or something, undeliverable, it said, and they've taken it back to the carrier hub, whatever the heck that is. And I'm like, oh, and now it says nothing about this book coming. Like there's nothing about, oh, we're going to try to send it out again, you know? I'm like, I want my book. I want my book. But anyway, I got my other ones, my vintage romance novel, my gothic romance novel. But the cover was ruined because someone slapped a huge sticker right over the mansion. That's the whole point of getting gothic romance novels, for the beautiful covers. So I took it off as careful as I could, but there was a big rip. So I'm quite disappointed with that. But what I'm most excited about, and I was so surprised that it is such a small book. This is one of my favorite movies. Mermaids. I love this flick. Well, I saw it when it came out, which was 1990. So this has been one of my favorite movies since then. I watched it so many times. And I thought, hey, I want to read the book that was based on. And it's this. And I started reading it last night. I've read this one. And it's so fun. It's like, oh, because like I have the whole movie memorized. So when I see the lines, the dialogue in print, it's like funny. Like when they go to the shoe store and meet Bob Hoskins here. And Winona Ryder, who is Charlotte, she always wears the same pair of boots that she got from her dad, who she doesn't actually know. And Cher and Christina Ricci there, she gets some nice red shoes with a strap. And she's like, I don't need any shoes. And he goes, nice boots. It's just funny in the movie. And it's funny in here too. It's funny in here too. Oh, you know what? And the guy from 16 Candles, who is the caretaker man at the convent, Joe, he doesn't take her fishing. He takes her to the ocean because he wants to take photographs of birds. That's completely different in the movie. Anyway, I'm very much enjoying it. So fun to read the book after seeing the movie a zillion times. But it's so short. And also I learned that she wrote a sequel to that with the same characters. So I'll have to get that too. For some reason, I just thought it would be like a chunkier novel. But I'm happy to have it. Very happy. Okay. Let's go. You probably can't hear the bird, huh? She'd have to be too closer. Do you want to come say hey, Pixie? Nah, I don't want to bother you. You'll have to go right back in there, huh? Would you like to sit on my shoulder while I read? We can try. We can try. What are you doing right there? Come on, Fluffernutter. Come on, Fluffernutter. That's a baby girl. Come on. You don't wanna? You don't wanna? Honk, honk. She does lots of different cute sounds. But I especially love it when you honk. She does like this little honking sound. Like you're a little goose, right? Careful. Careful. You're upside down now. Yes, you like to do tricks. Come on over here. Ping pong ball. Come on. Come with me. Whoop. Whoops. You're feathered. Whoop. Okay. Whoop. There we go. Now, would you like to sit on my shoulder while I read to the peoples? You want to sit on my shoulder? Look. It's Pixie. Look, it's Pixie. She's got dark blue bluebird kisses. Her little dark blue splashes on her cheeks. I call them bluebird kisses, right? Kisses from bluebirds. Want to get on my shoulder? Do you want to get on my shoulder? There, get on my shoulder. There you go. Want to help me read, okay? Okay. The first thing Nancy heard when she woke up was the sound of water, of waves pounding against a shore. Yeah. Her head ached. Her head ached. She couldn't move her arms, and her face was freezing. This is what the little one does when I'm recording my audiobooks, like my proper audiobooks. She likes to start tweeting as soon as I press record. Shall we try that again? The first thing Nancy heard when she woke up was the sound of water, of waves pounding against a shore. Her head ached. She couldn't move her arms, and her face was freezing. Where am I? She wondered groggily. What's going on? Why am I so cold? Gradually, it came back to her. The kidnapping, the nightmarish car ride, blindfolded and gagged, the strange voice saying she was the wrong girl, and finally, the sweet, nauseating scent of chloroform. I've never smelled chloroform before. Have you? Chlorophyll. I was thinking it has nothing to do with plants and biology, does it? It's not chlorophyll. I don't know. Lifting her head slightly, Nancy saw that she had been wrapped tightly in blankets. Oh my gosh, I would freak that out. You know, you shouldn't do that to people who are freaking out. It just makes them go more nuts. I mean, I've never been put in a straitjacket or tight blankets, but I would think it would like screw me up even more. Okay, thanks. Because even some clothes I feel trapped in. Okay. I can't wear I don't like wearing layers either. Like some people wear a shirt, a sweater, a jacket. I can't even think about that. It's scary. Lifting, oh yeah. That was why she couldn't move her arms. At least they didn't leave me to freeze to death, she said out loud. I think I'd rather freeze to death than not be able to move. Because, yeah, it was comforting to hear her own voice. Her eyes began to adjust to her surroundings. I'm trying to figure out where she is. This is like good. I like this. We're along with Nancy trying to figure things out, you know? I can't. Her eyes began to adjust to her surroundings. She was lying on sand, but she could hear the sounds of traffic coming from close by. She could make out streetlights and a sidewalk path not far from where she was lying. Where was she? She's on the beach, it sounds like. They're waiting for the tide to come in, I guess. She struggled to unwind herself from the blankets. Oh, this is a scary book. She had to roll back and forth to loosen them and found herself giggling in a light-headed way. She must look like a mummy trying to get out of its bandages. Is she losing her marbles? Or is she actually like finding some kind of entertainment in this. Finally, she wriggled free and immediately looked at her watch. It took a few moments to be able to read the dial in the dim glow of the distant streetlights. Kiss me. Pixie's not a kisser. I kiss her, but she doesn't like kiss back. You know what I mean? No. It was 9:30. She had been gone from the restaurant for only 45 minutes. Nancy stood up shakily. Considering how little time had passed, she couldn't be too far away from Puccini's. She decided she was still on Chicago's north side. She knew she was on the shore of Lake Michigan, so the street to her right must be Lakeshore Drive. Oh, come on. She doesn't know that. Come on, man. Come on, man. She walked a short way down the beach to a cement stairway that led to the street. She glanced at the street sign. She had been right. The big, busy street was Lakeshore Drive. Now that she had her bearings, she headed for the next block over. It was brightly lit and had a lot of restaurants on it. Standing at the crosswalk to cross over the drive, Nancy watched several cars go by, their headlights sweeping over her as they passed. One woman stared at her from the car window, looking horrified. Nancy glanced down at herself. She was covered with sand, and judging from the tangles she could feel, her hair was a mess. Detective work wasn't pretty, she often told people. Well, now she was living proof. At least she was alive. What about the girl the kidnappers had meant to grab? Would she be as lucky? Nancy wasn't sure. She was sure of one thing, though. She had to do everything in her power to find out who the kidnappers were and stop them from striking again. End of chapter 3. Can you say chapter 3? End of chapter 3. Well, it's funny, they already tell us who the girl is meant to be. And there hasn't been any mention of how Nancy and this girl look like each other. Is he really making a pass at Denise Mason? A cheerleader who bears a striking I can't speak anymore. A striking resemblance to Nancy? I don't know. If people join in right now, they will have missed a whole chapter. Should I keep going on? I don't know what else I could read to you. Poems? Who's here? Because I'd like to go on, but I've already read one chapter this session, so if somebody comes on right now, they'll be like, oh, I can't listen to this right now because I missed a whole chapter. But I know that people listen to it afterward. It's pretty exciting. Oh, look, Nancy's next case. And then in the back, we have an order form. No expiration date. I don't see an expiration date on this. Should I fill it out and send it in? To Old Tappan, New Jersey. Please send me the books I've checked above. I am enclosing check or money order, no cash or CODs. Should I send it in? Flirting with Danger. Now, what is the one? I think it has pumpkins on it. It has kind of a black cover, black background. Nancy's in the front, and I think it is a Halloween themed one, and there's pumpkins. Maybe she's wearing a cape or something. I don't know. So how's everyone enjoying Sign of the Twisted Candles? So far, it is so much the same as the rewrite. I thought it would be a little bit more different. Like The Hidden Staircase is so different from the original one. Sign of the Twisted Candles so far is very, very much alike. So should we keep going? I'm going to keep going, okay? You're being a nice little lady. Want to say something? Want to say something? Look at her feet. She's so cute. Yeah, you're so cute, huh? No kisses. No kisses. Okay, let's go. Chapter 4. Can I help you, miss? Asked a nervous hostess. Do you want to go back to your house? Chapter 4. Can I help you? Can I help you, miss? Asked a nervous hostess. Nancy had walked into the nearest restaurant to call Ned and the others. Unfortunately, she had chosen... Okay. This is her regular sound that she makes when I'm reading my book, okay? And it's so loud. How can such a loud sound come from such a tiny little pipsqueak? Eh? Where does it come from? Your vocal cords, eh? You're a little pipsqueak with a big loud voice. You are a little pipsqueaky. I want you to let me do one more chapter, though, okay? Okay? Oh, my neck. Oh, it's probably meningitis. It was in high school, right? We were supposed to get meningitis shots, and I didn't, but I said I did. They didn't give me any kind of, like, I suppose if you get it done, they would put it in your little book or something, or give you some kind of document saying you got your shot. But my mom didn't ask or anything, so I just pretended I got it. That was when I was afraid of needles. I'm not afraid now, obviously, because I stick that huge sword into my stomach every month. Ooh, yeah, that's so cute. I'm gonna eat you up. You know, I rarely wear lipstick anymore because I'm always kissing the bird. One time I forgot I had some lipstick on, and there's still like a kind of a faint reddish mark. Hey, you gotta take more bird baths because I'm always going. Hey, we put a little bit of lip balm on, but I've been staying away from lipstick because I got to kiss my birdie. You're delicious. Birds smell so good. Oh, I don't know if they all do. My cockatiels smelled so yummy. I would say to them, I'm going to make a roast cockatiel sandwich. I wouldn't really. It's like with little babies and stuff, you know? You're like, oh, you're so cute, I could just eat you. But you don't really mean it. You're not really going to eat the baby. Well, birds smell so delicious. I'm sure any parrot owners can agree with me. Eh? You smell delicious. Yes, you do. Okay, I'm going to put you back now. There, you can go back in your house now, okay? Thank you for joining us for a while. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. She took a little bit off the end too. And then in like 3 weeks or so, I will go back and she will do a free little touch up on my bangs. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. I don't even feel them. Well, I have very thin hair, but I don't even feel anything on my forehead. All right, let's do this. Chapter 4. Can I help you, miss? Asked a nervous hostess. Nancy had walked into the nearest restaurant to call Ned and the others. Unfortunately, she had chosen a classy French restaurant. I've had an accident, said Nancy. It was much simpler than saying, I've been kidnapped. Besides, who would believe her? It's nothing serious, she added when she saw the shocked look on the hostess's face. I just need to use the payphone. She reached into her pocket. there was one precious quarter tucked away right next to the heart-shaped stone. Ned! She had to see him. She needed to feel his strong arms around her right then. I wonder who he's putting his arms around. The hostess pointed the way to the back of the restaurant. Nancy swallowed and tried to walk quickly through the room. It was a beautiful restaurant with linen cloths and flowers on the tables. Most of the tables were for two, and many couples sat with their hands entwined as they chatted intimately in the dim, rosy light. Everybody turned and stared at the bedraggled girl walking through their midst. Nancy breathed a sigh of relief when she finally spotted the phone, right beside the swinging door to the kitchen. She picked up the receiver and froze. So much had happened in the last hour, and it had all started with this same simple movement. But nothing happened, and slowly Nancy's feeling of déjà vu passed. Now, where would she find Ned? She decided to try Puccini's. They would probably still be sitting at the table, wondering where she was. Would they have been worried enough to call the police yet? She had been quiet during dinner, but Ned and George would know that it wasn't like her to disappear without telling anyone. She called directory assistance and got the number for Puccini's. As she was dialing, wonderful smells wafted under her nose from the kitchen of the French restaurant. The nausea from the chloroform was almost gone, and she sniffed appreciatively. "Puccini's, how can I help you?" asked a male voice on the other end of the line. It was noisy, and Nancy could barely hear him. To make matters worse, waiters balancing huge round trays were rushing in and out through the swinging doors at her left, and the clatter of the many kitchen workers was a definite distraction. "Hello! Hello! Hello!" Sorry. "Hello!" She practically yelled into the receiver. "I'm looking for some friends who were at your restaurant. My name is Nancy Drew." "Oh, Miss Drew, hello. This is Mario. Did you enjoy your ride?" My ride? An alarm went off in Nancy's head. So it was Mario she had seen as she was being dragged out of Puccini's. Could he have been involved in her kidnapping? Obviously, or why would he say that? If so, why would he be crazy enough to admit it? The best idea, she decided, was to play it safe. I got a chance to see a few spots in Chicago I've never seen before," she replied, trying not to give anything away. "That's nice," said Mario. "I thought it was a crazy idea, but you kids today, you're all crazy." He laughed, then added something else. "What's that, Mario?" Nancy couldn't hear him over the combined noise of Puccini's and the kitchen of the French restaurant. She had covered her left ear with her hand and had the receiver clamped to her right ear. "Your friends, they just left." "They left?" Nancy couldn't believe her ears. "Did they say where they were going?" "Okay, fine. I gotta be going too. Ciao." Mario hung up. Nancy listened to the dead line for a moment before she replaced the receiver back on the hook. Where could her friends have gone? More to the point, how could they have left Puccini's without her? Didn't they wonder where she was? She turned around to find the hostess hovering behind her. This time the woman looked less shocked and more concerned. "Are you all right?" she asked. "You look a little shaken up." "I'm okay," Nancy said, managing a small smile. "I've just misplaced my boyfriend." "Oh, it was that kind of accident," said the hostess, smiling. "Well, if you need to make any more phone calls, you can use the restaurant phone. It's up by the Maitre D's station. Oh, and the restrooms are right around that corner if you want to dust yourself off." Nancy thanked her and hurried into the ladies' room. She didn't look nearly so bad as she had imagined. Mostly she was sandy. She brushed the sand off as well as she could and gave her hair a good shake. Then she splashed her face with cold water and washed her hands. She did need to make more phone calls. The first person she thought to call was Pat Burnett, Ned's basketball coach. Maybe he'd know where to find his players. The coach was staying at the Chicago University dorm, and the switchboard was already closed. Where could her friends have gone? To the police? If they were that concerned, wouldn't they have said something to Mario? On the other hand, if Mario was one of the kidnap gang, he probably wouldn't have told Nancy anyone was worried about her. Yeah, what the heck is with him? Did you enjoy your ride? He's obviously part of it. Nancy's head was swimming. This was getting her nowhere. She was tired and hungry and needed to get home. She dialed the Sampsons' number. Nella Sampson answered the phone on the second ring. She has a husky voice, apparently. Well, I don't know how to do a husky voice. Nancy, I can't do it. Nancy, her husky voice said into the receiver. We were wondering when you'd turn up. Your friends are already here. They're there? They're there? Nancy cried. They're there. They're there. They're there? Nancy cried. Sure. There was some talk of your disappearing from the restaurant. One of the girls said it was a practical joke. At any rate, they figured this was the best place to wait for you to show up. Ned drove your car here. This is really getting weird. A practical joke? Nancy repeated, feeling stupid. Was someone playing tricks on her? Wait. Nella's voice suddenly got fainter. Wait. George is grabbing the phone. You're coming right over, aren't you, Nancy? Yes, Nancy said, but she doubted Nella had heard. George was already talking. Nan, where are you? George demanded. You didn't tell me you had a disappearing act planned for the evening. George, something crazy happened, but I'd rather tell you in person. Nancy's tone changed slightly. Is Ned there? Of course. We're all here. George paused. Nan, she said in a much quieter voice. Are you okay? Yes, I'll see you in 10 minutes. Nancy dug into her back pocket and found a couple of bills. So far, so good. I'm taking a taxi over. Nancy hung up the phone and breathed a sigh of relief. She had found her friends, and they knew she was all right. Now all she had to do was stop a kidnapping from happening. Nancy thanked the hostess sincerely. Smiling, she handed Nancy one of the restaurant's business cards. Come back and have dinner at Le Coq d'Or, the Golden Chicken. Golden Rooster. I don't know, one of those. When you find your boyfriend, she offered. On the street, there were plenty of cabs, and Nancy hailed one easily. She got in and gave the Sampsons' address to the driver. It was still Friday night in the big city, and Nancy watched as couples and groups hurried to warm restaurants and cozy apartments. She shivered. She had left the blankets on the beach, and all she had on was a thin mohair sweater over her cotton blouse. She had left her coat and purse at the restaurant. I think she would have taken those blankets with her. I mean, there could have been a clue in those blankets somehow, right? She had left her coat and purse at the restaurant. I'd be going to get my purse first. Or they probably took it. Did she leave it at the table? Or did she take it down and get kidnapped and left it on the ground? I don't know. As she thought about that, Nancy felt a twinge of anger. George and Ned should have known something was wrong. Why would she have left her coat and purse behind if she planned on disappearing? Especially the coat. The coat more than the purse? Okay. It was freezing, for goodness sake. I'd rather have my purse than my coat, but then I'm always hot. And I feel very scared when I don't have my stuff with me. The cab came to a stop outside a fancy three-story townhouse. Nancy handed over the last few dollars there were in our pockets. The door to the townhouse opened, and Nella Sampson ushered her in out of the cold. "Nancy, you look frozen," she said, hugging her. "I think you could use some hot chocolate. Come on in. Your friends are all in the living room." I wonder if Denise is there. When Nancy... Thank you, Samuel. Yes, I got my roots done and I got some bangs cut. When Nancy walked into the living room, everybody immediately began yelling at once. "Where were you? What's the big idea? Who'd you plan this with?" Nancy just sank down on the nearest comfortable chair and smiled weakly. "I can't tell you anything until I've had some hot chocolate," she protested. "Nancy," George hugged her friend. I was beginning to get worried. "Step aside, Fane," Ned interrupted. "I need a hug too." Ugh, Ned is really making me mad in this book. Nancy smiled and put her arms around his neck. She needed to hear that. Ned sat on the arm of the easy chair, put one of her cold hands between his two warm ones, and rubbed gently. "Whenever you're ready, we're dying to know where you've been all this time," he said. "I don't think she wants to tell," said Denise. "I think she's enjoying the suspense too much." Nancy supposed Denise was trying to make a joke, but it fell heavily in the room. Looking up, she caught the cheerleader's annoyed expression. Denise's big green eyes showed disappointment. Nancy thought, suddenly alert. There's one person in this room who isn't so glad to see me. I wonder why exactly. Was it possible that Denise Mason had been behind Nancy's kidnapping? End of chapter 4. Not according to the blurb on the back. We know more we know more than Nancy does at this point because of this back blurb. Yeah, the blurb on the back. Would you like to hear it? Nancy's in Chicago to cheer the Emerson College basketball team, led by co-captain Ned Nickerson, against their arch rivals. But she can't believe her eyes. Has Ned saved his slickest moves for the post-game celebration? Is he really making a pass at Denise Mason, a cheerleader who bears a striking resemblance to Nancy? The mystery takes an even more serious twist when a kidnapper intending to abduct Denise grabs Nancy instead. Denise's father is the curator of a museum, and a team of art smugglers are making a play for a priceless painting. In a case of forgery and mistaken identity, Nancy discovers that deception and danger are the only rules of the game. So if Denise is the one who was supposed to be kidnapped, then she wouldn't be behind the kidnapping. Now would she? So there, I will stop for now. We read 2 chapters. It's getting pretty exciting. I think how many chapters are in here? There's 17 chapters in here. So that was fun. It's not even 6 yet. Okay. So tell me more about your peanut butter taffy. Is that homemade taffy? I've never heard of peanut butter taffy before. Oh, he's chewing on his cuddle bone. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I knew it had something to do with fish, cuddle bone, but They come from a fish called cuttlefish, and they're the scariest fish ever. Oh, cool. Is it like really chewy? Mhm. Like it will pull your teeth right out? 68 cents a bag. Nice. I'd never heard of it. Let me Google it. Peanut butter. Move out the way, you. Peanut butter taffy. I am seeing like Halloween candy in the little wrappers, you know? That's what I see. Peanut butter kisses. When I put in peanut butter taffy, they show me bags of peanut butter kisses. Ooh, here's some saltwater taffy in a box. Peanut butter filled. Ooh. Here is some Mary Jane taffy candy. Oh, this is fudge. Okay, that's enough. Peanut butter and chocolate fudge. That is enough. So were they like that? Like little in a individually wrapped, you know, one side and they're like twisted on the ends. You know what I mean? Like a hard candy. Yep. I haven't had bangs for a long time. Wow. Sounds good. When I think of taffy, I think of like, you know, long pieces and you go like that. Mm, I can imagine. So I guess that's it for tonight. Um, I wouldn't mind reading more. Should I read more? Okay. Since it's not even 6 yet. I want to see what's going to happen here. Turkey sandwich. Okay, let's read one more chapter. I'm not sure if I saw that. Wasn't that a while ago that you did that? But I did see that, unless it's a different one. All right, let's do chapter 5. Yeah, I saw that. Chapter 5. In the next instant, Nancy discarded that theory. The kidnapping, joke or not, had to have been planned in advance. It was too well orchestrated to have been put together at a moment's notice. There was no way Denise could have known Nancy was coming to Chicago until that very evening. After they'd met, the only time Denise had been alone was the 10 minutes or so while she was showering and changing after the game. Surely she'd have needed more time to plan. Surely. Besides, Nancy was forgetting about how the one kidnapper had said she was the wrong girl. If Denise had somehow managed to plan it, Nancy would have been the target. There would have been no mistake. Nella Sampson bustled in at that moment with a tray filled with mugs. She set it down on the coffee table in front of the sofa, then took a seat herself. "Okay, where have you been?" she demanded. "I was beginning to think I would have to call your father and tell him we'd lost his only daughter on her first night in Chicago." Treating her like she's a child and she hasn't been all over the world and had many harrowing adventures. Nancy smiled. "That's not quite as ridiculous an idea as it sounds," she admitted. "As a matter of fact, it seems I was kidnapped." Leaning back in her chair, Nancy slowly told them the details of her kidnapping. She felt much better with her left hand clasped in Ned's and her right hand wrapped around a steaming cup of hot chocolate. Nella had made her a thick turkey sandwich, which sat untouched on the coffee table. Everyone sat listening to her story in astonished silence. There was a fire in the fireplace, and an occasional pop or snap was the only other sound in the room besides Nancy's voice. Ned put his arms around her and held her tightly when she told the part about waking up alone on the beach. Denise sat wide-eyed, barely moving. Then I called Mario actually, she didn't call Mario, she just called the restaurant. Then I called Mario from the French restaurant, and he said that he thought it was some big joke, Nancy concluded. And after that, I managed to track you guys down here. Nella Sampson shook her head. It's unbelievable, she murmured. After you had been gone for 15 minutes, I started to get worried, said George. I thought maybe you had decided to make a few more phone calls, but then you still hadn't come back. So I went to check the phones in restrooms just to see if you might be there. Ned interrupted. George came back to the table and said you weren't there, so we both went outside to see if you had gone out for some air or something. George went one way, I went the other. After about 10 minutes, we came back inside. Then I talked to Mario. He said he had seen you leaving in a car and that someone had told him it was some kind of a practical joke. So maybe he isn't in on it. Nancy looked at him. I would never play that kind of game. I know, but Denise... Ned trailed off. George finished his sentence for him. Denise thought that you had agreed to be part of a practical joke staged by the Eagles. Nancy felt herself getting angry. First of all, why would I want to help the other team play a practical joke on the Wildcats? And second, that kidnapping was no joke. I was there, remember? It was very scary. Suddenly, Nancy felt as if she was about to cry. She took a deep breath to calm down, then sipped her chocolate. If it was me, I would want everyone to leave me alone. Like, stop it. I wouldn't want I wouldn't be sitting there with a bunch of people telling them stuff. I would be like, okay, look, I'm traumatized. Please get the hell out of the house. Okay. But that's just me. It had gotten lukewarm, and there was a filmy layer of milk on top. She put the cup down. The important thing, though, is not what you guys thought happened, she said, leaning forward in her chair. The important thing is what actually did happen, and what will happen again if we don't figure out who the kidnappers are and who they really want. Shouldn't we call the police? Asked Dave. Not Dave of Ned and the Nedlings. I think we should make sure it wasn't a practical joke first, said Denise. I mean, I'm sure it seemed very serious to you. Uh-oh, I hate Denise again. I mean, I'm sure it seemed very serious to you, she said to Nancy as if she were talking to a small child. I just wonder if it seemed scarier to you than they meant it to be. I'd be punching her lights out. If their idea of a joke is to slap chloroform over Nancy's mouth and leave her to freeze on the beach, I sure wouldn't want to find out what they do when they're serious, George interjected hotly. Hold it, Ned said, his voice sharp. I think we need to think this through logically. I think we can assume that the kidnappers aren't going to strike twice in one night, Nancy said, tiredly running a hand through her hair. They need time to come up with another plan. So we need to figure out who the intended victim is and to get to her first, George added. After a short silence, Nancy cleared her throat. They probably wanted someone else who was at the restaurant, she said, starting them off. Maybe someone with a lot of money, suggested George. Well, I did notice that Martha Dodge was there last night, offered Denise. She's a major snob. I went to high school with her. Anyway, she was sitting at the table behind ours. Her family is incredibly rich. Okay, so her family is rich, Dave said, leaning back on a pillow on the rug. But why choose to kidnap somebody's rich daughter from a busy, busy restaurant when anybody could have caught them in the act? Maybe they wanted to get caught, offered Denise. Someone told Mario it was a practical joke. It probably was. Nancy bit back a sharp retort. She knew her story sounded pretty weird. Why did Denise have to keep insisting that the ordeal Nancy had just gone through had been a practical joke, though? But why? George was asking. Who is the joke on? Certainly not on Nancy. Let's say it was a real kidnapping attempt and not a practical joke. Could it have something to do with the basketball tournament? Dave said. He sat up from his relaxed position on the floor, his blue eyes intense. Someone could have followed us from the basketball game, thinking Nancy was an Emerson student. And, Nancy prompted, well, let's say they wanted to distract us from the tournament by kidnapping one of our students, he went on excitedly. Then they find out they messed up and didn't get a student. That seems like a pretty drastic thing for the Eagles to do. Besides, if they were caught, they'd get disqualified not only from the tournament, but also from all league play, Ned objected. If they were caught, said Dave. They make it look like a professional job, and we're off their trail. Nancy had already thought of this possibility in the car on the way to wherever the kidnappers had taken her. It did seem pretty drastic. She had to agree with Ned, but she could think of no other explanation. Mario said someone told him it was a practical joke, she put in. That would make someone on the Eagles team an obvious choice. It would have to be more than one person, said George. You said there were 2 people in the elevator and 1 leader at the house. It's getting confusing. Am I right? The person to talk to is Mario. He could probably tell us who told him it was a joke, said Nancy, getting to her feet. Nancy, where do you think you're going? Ned said, pulling her gently back to the chair. The first thing we have to do, Nancy began, but Ned cut her off. The first thing we have to do, Drew. I hate it when I like old-timey Ned better than 80s Ned. 80s Ned makes me want to slap him silly. The first thing we have to do, Drew, is make sure you get a good night's sleep, he said protectively. You had a rough time tonight. He gave her a quick kiss and then stood up. Dave and I will be at the guest team's dorms at Chicago University. I'll call you in the morning and we can make a plan of action. Please don't bring Denise. I'll drive you there, offered Denise. It's on my way home. Good luck with your case, Nancy, she added as she slid into her leather jacket. I guess you've got something to keep you busy while we get ready for Monday's game. Let me know if you need any help catching the bad guys. Anyway, I'm sure I'll see you around. Nella Sampson saw them to the front door. As soon as everyone left the room, George turned to Nancy. I'm sorry, Nan, she said contritely. I should never have listened to Denise. She's a convincing talker, though. She practically had me thinking you had disappeared just to get attention. Now I think she understands she was wrong about you. Nancy shrugged. She wasn't convinced that Denise believed her story, even now. Well, the important thing is to get to the bottom of this, she said aloud. I'm going to do it, even if it means wrapping myself up like a mummy and lying by the lake for a half hour. George giggled. Sorry, she said. It's just kind of funny to think about, you know? No. No, I don't know. Yeah, I guess, Nancy grinned. They both started giggling. And soon they were rolling on the floor with laughter. Okay, I cannot relate to these people at all. I can't relate to these people. Can you? Because I can't. Left to die, chloroformed, wrapped up and left for dead. Oh, hilarious, hilarious. Oh my gosh. It's like Mary Poppins funny when they're up on the ceiling. Nella Sampson poked her head through the doorway. I'm glad you're having fun, but don't you think you should wrap things up? Wrap things up, George repeated. Oh, wait. Wrap things up, George repeated. It sent the girls into another fit of laughter. Nella just shook her head. See you two in the morning. Sleep well. I'm totally dumbfounded by that whole bit there. That night, Nancy had a dream. She was having a picnic with Ned in a park, and then the Zodiac killer came along. I don't know why I thought of that. But anyway, okay. In a park that they often went to in River Heights. She was wearing an old pair of shorts and a t-shirt. She had forgotten to brush her hair. Looking into the picnic basket, all she saw was cold pizza wrapped in oily napkins. On top of the pizza was a business card from Puccini's. Then she saw Denise in the distance. Denise was walking slowly through the grass. She had a black hood over her head. No, I'm just kidding about the black hood. Barefoot and wearing a beautiful, flowing, lacy dress. Suddenly, Ned saw Denise too. He stood up to go to her. Nancy called to him, but he ignored her and broke into a run to meet Denise, who had her hair combed, probably. Nancy watched as the two of them were greeted by Nancy's friend, Bess. Hi, Ned. Hi, Nancy, Bess cried. It's Bess. What a nice surprise. Nancy tried to call out to Bess, but the words stuck in her throat. That's not me. That's Denise, she kept trying to say, but it came out as a whisper. Bess thinks Denise is Nancy. Nancy awoke with a start. The image of Ned and Denise was still sharp and vivid. They had looked so good together, so happy. Denise had a sketchbook, and Ned was carrying an art book. Why had Bess thought that Denise was Nancy? They didn't look that much alike, except for the color of their hair. Blurb on the back. Striking resemblance, it says on the back, but whatever. Nancy sat up straight in bed. That was it. That's who the kidnappers wanted, she said out loud. Denise. End of chapter 5. Oh my gosh. That was like a fun dream. I enjoyed that. I don't know, it just a couple having a picnic in a park, and I don't know, I was thinking of the Zodiac for some reason, which is very frightening. There's a very low budget movie called Zodiac from when they were still trying to catch him and stuff. It was an active investigation, and they made this movie to try to catch him. They gave out like, let me try to like make it make sense to say out loud. They had like, you would fill in who do you think is the Zodiac, or they were trying to get a match to the handwriting or something. And they had the guy in the box where you would put your paper in, and the police were waiting and stuff. And they were like, the police were involved in this. And they were trying to catch him at the theater. They thought he was so like narcissistic that they would go see the movie about himself. He would go see the movie about himself. Anyway, it didn't work. Let me just try to find the name, or like the 1971. Okay. The Zodiac Killer. It's a slasher film. But this movie is like so bad that it's good, and it's so creepy for me just because it is made at the time when he was still, like, on the loose. I mean, we never found out who he was, but okay, listen to this. The opening night screening took place at San Francisco's RKO Golden Gate Theater on April 7th, 1971. Audience members were asked to write their answers to, oh, yeah, I think the Zodiac kills because, and then they write in, and drop their entries into a large box in order to enter a raffle to win a motorcycle donated by Kawasaki. The unsuspecting filmgoers didn't know that there was a volunteer crouched inside the box comparing their handwriting with samples of the Zodiacs, and that there were goons, including members of the film's cast. Why do they call them goons if they're like trying to catch a bad guy? Waiting in the wings, ready to apprehend and interrogate anyone whose penmanship raised a red flag. Wow, I read a book about the Zodiac by what's his name? And the movie was based on his book. Graysmith, Richard Graysmith. Anyway, it goes into a lot more detail about this movie. But I just thought that was so interesting and kind of creepy that they made that movie specifically to try to catch him. Anyway, it's on YouTube if you want to see it. It's from 1971 and it's called The Zodiac Killer. I mean, it's usually on YouTube if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I don't really like new movies, and I find the older ones creepier by far, especially if they're a very low budget kind of deal. Yep, it's on there. It's there. Anyway, if you like that kind of jazz, go for it. So, how many do we read today? 3? 3 chapters? 3, 4, 5. That is correct, sir. Well, I'm hungry, so I will say good night, and I will see you again for another chapter of the very strange but somehow captivating and interesting and weird story. Don't Look Twice, okay? Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining me.